What's up, y'all? It's Ty. We're back here. We're going to be breaking down this Dynasty deep dive article. Now, look, guys, this article is so long. I went through, read it all, and I'm like, I don't want you guys to sit there and have to read through this whole article with me. So what I'm going to be doing today is talking about some key points that I want to hit on that I see in this article, specifically talking about your coach, talking about recruiting, talking about different things within the Dynasty mode. Now, first thing I want to talk about, when you're talking about building your coach, you select exactly what you want your coach to be, whether it's, a recruiter, whether it's an X's and O's, whether it's a motivator. You're picking one of those specific three things, and you kind of progress through the Dynasty mode as well. So the more you upgrade your coach, the better that he becomes at whatever you choose, as well as those other specific things. So when you look at coach archetypes, there's three different ones. There's a motivator, there's a recruiter, and then there's a tactician. Now, again, you can upgrade your archetype. Obviously, you guys can see as you do get XP through games, through other stuff. And not only do can you upgrade your specific group, whether you're a motivator, recruiter, or tactician, you can also upgrade other things while unlocking him. So that's the first thing I really see is, as a coach, you choose your archetype and you can progress through the mode by gaining XP. The next thing I want to talk about is climbing the coaching ladder. So if you're like me, you like starting at a small school and building that school up within the Dynasty mode. Now, within that, you might have some specific goals, whether it's win a certain amount of games, win a conference championship, natty, college football playoff, depending on where you are. When you do have those goals, that's going to, control your job security. And whether you win games, whether you lose games, you'll see your security go up or down within those specific things. So you guys can see with the Oregon Ducks, for example, the goal is to win 9 games. The result will maybe determine your job security throughout time. With that, coaching carousel becomes a thing, and obviously that takes place throughout the offseason, and it does say in this article that it's kind of a domino effect. So even if you, let's say, get fired from your Oregon job, you might not receive an offer right away. It might take some time in the offseason for you guys to get your offers, because just because you didn't receive any offers in the first week of bowl season, or if you don't like the offers you received, doesn't mean your carousel experience is over. It takes place over multiple weeks, so then you can go from there, and it's not just a specific thing. Now, how did schools determine? It's on level, scheme, archetype, pipeline, and coach prestige. So depends on whether you fit that school scheme, depends on how good you are as a coach, the level of your coach, as well as the archetype. And just like I said, the domino effect, if a coach from Memphis goes to Minnesota, then guess what? That Memphis job might be opened up for you. Another thing that is important, if you are the head coach, you hire your offensive and defensive coordinators. You try to pick a candidate that you think is right for your school based on, the offense, the defense that you are wanting to run. Let's talk about recruiting, because that is a big time thing that people are going to want to know about. Introducing new stage recruiting: discovery, pitch, and close. So discovery is like, we'll break it down here. Discovery is basically, you discovering this specific recruit, you learning about that recruit. Your pitch is wanting that recruit to come to where you guys are at, whether that's, whether that's Iowa, wherever it is. And then the close, once they get down to, let's say, their top 3 schools, you guys can see this is when you have the recruit in for an official visit and try to leave a lasting impression. So this is kind of cool. It's, a stage recruiting, but discovery, when you discover the recruit, to pitch, and then closing the deal, a 3-step process. Now, within your specific school, there's going to be 14 different categories that are really relative to recruiting: playing time, playing style, championship contender, program, tradition, campus lifestyle, stadium atmosphere, pro potential, brand exposure, academic prestige, conference prestige, coach stability, and athletic facilities, as well as their proximity to home. Now, some players might have one lock. So let's say a player really values their proximity to home and you're in Minnesota, but that recruit is from, let's say, California. Well, then guess what? They're probably not going to come to Minnesota if they do want to stay close to home. Now, again, some of the recruits will value some things compared to other things, and that is going to play a role in recruiting as well. And that's what this article just kind of describes here is, again, most grades update dramatically throughout the season. So within your own school, right? Let's say you're at Minnesota. That playing time might change. Like if you have a quarterback that's a freshman, but that freshman plays horrible, well, guess what? If you're recruiting a quarterback, their playing time might obviously see a boost because they'll have a chance to win that job if they do end up coming there. Let's talk about what a recruit cares about. Again, those 14 different factors. Obviously, some recruits are going to prioritize one thing compared to other recruits prioritizing other things. Got to find a recruit that does fit you. Recruiting pipeline. So I know you guys probably have your favorite school. You know where they get most of their recruits from. So let's talk about it. Having a pipeline in Florida is much more valuable than one in New York. Why? It's because that's where the majority of, you're going to have more prospects in Florida compared to New York. And again, each and every school has their specific pipeline where they like to go and where they are established to get their specific recruits. Florida has historically dominated recruiting in Central Florida. LSU regularly reaches into East Texas. And so again, this is going to play a factor with your specific school where they do like to recruit. And it looks like there's specific stages. So recruits will go from a top 8 to a top 5 to a top 3. That's their progression. You guys can see it here in this graphic. Once you reach your top 8, then you can maybe pitch and try to get them to your top 5, then obviously to the top 3. Your job is to stay above the cut line each week, okay? So you got to be committed to staying above those specific cut lines. Obviously, this is an interesting paragraph here. As Rice, you often see that recruits who are interested in your school are also interested in Vandy, Northwestern, and Stanford due to their high academic prestige. So this is something I don't think we probably saw in NCAA Football 14 is like if a recruit really values their academics and they want to go to a really prestigious academic school, those top schools are probably going to align with your academics as well. So Vandy, Northwestern, Stanford probably share a lot of those same recruits, and Rice is in there as well. And here it just talks about different stages of recruiting. So stage 1, you guys can see discovery. You look at the position, where they're from, height, weight, all of those things. You discover them. Do they fit your team needs? You have a listed breakdown for whatever team you are. So like Michigan State says you need 2 quarterbacks. You need a running back. You need a left guard. Tells you all those things. You have a specific amount of recruiting hours. A good program has up to 1,000. A one-star program, 350. Says they also do vary or depending on the time of the year as well. Again, you can have, I do believe, 34 or 35 targets and then 35 different scholarships that you do have available. Again, you can scout players. You can partially scout them, mostly scout them, fully scout them. Within the recruiting, there are 5 recruiting actions. You offer them a scholarship, search social media, DM the player, contact friends and family, and then send the house. What is sending the house? That's something I didn't know when I initially watched the trailer today. From the recruiting coordinator to every other coach on your staff, send every available resource you have after a prospect to gain as much influence with them as possible. So if you really like a recruit, sending the house probably is going to be a good opportunity for you. But again, that takes a lot of points. You guys can see, I think here it's 50 points out of your 1,000 hours you have. So that is quite a few points within one recruit. Transfer portal, a big part of college football, probably will be a big part of the game as well. So you got to be careful when you're promising players playing time, stuff like that, because if you promise a player playing time, you don't give it to them, it's probably a deal breaker when they do decide to transfer out of your program. You guys can see once a player has decided to leave, you will have an opportunity to persuade them to stay. That is something that was a thing in NCAA Football 14, is when somebody decided to leave, you could try to pitch them to stay. Now, it was a little different. I don't think it's going to be just a simple click, try to pitch them to stay. I think it might be a little more in-depth. Now, this section right here, Coach Prime, Deion Sanders had to force some players out of Colorado to bring in the guys he wanted. Says if you're over the 85-man limit, you will be forced to encourage some of your players to transfer and find a new home. This is in college football. If somebody doesn't fit the school, they oftentimes, coaches would tell them that, it's probably a different fit elsewhere. Transfer portal, again, a big time thing. It's one thing that I think was annoying back in NCAA Football 14 is when you had a player transfer, you couldn't necessarily replace them, especially if it was after the season, after you're recruiting. Now, you can bring in a transfer, can play day one. But again, it's that similar type of thing. Transfers happen much more quickly in college football 25 than recruiting. Normally, they make a quick decision. And as you guys can see here, since 4 and 5 star prospects are in the highest demand, if you're not in their top 5, you will not be able to talk with them. Again, it's a quick decision for the transfer portal. It does say lower star prospects will vary in terms of number of schools. Some will be completely open, while others have as few as 3 schools they're considering. Later on in this article, we talk about position changes. You can change your position. Again, that was a thing in NCAA Football 14, as well as player progression. Now, player progression looks way more complicated than it has in the past. You guys can see, to simulate the real world difference in physical maturity between a freshman and a senior, younger players like rising sophomores will take larger leaps during the offseason than a rising senior. Obviously makes sense. Players when they're younger do tend to develop more. And if your coach is a motivator, can also have the put in work ability. So an ability that you can get as a motivator, which increases offseason development for players in a particular position group. Progression would then be further modified by the player's development trait, whether that's normal, impact, star, or elite. Here you guys can see what the 12-team football playoff is going to look like. It's crazy, guys. Teams could be looking at playing 16 games in a season, which is just crazy. Here you guys can see the 12-team format is a 5+7 model. Basically means the 5 highest ranked conference champs will get automatic berths, and then the 7 spots will be filled based on the order of the college football playoff ranking. It says Notre Dame or any other independent, as well as the winner of the Pac-12, can be seated no higher than 5th and will never be eligible to skip the playoff first round. Kind of punishes Notre Dame. Like, if they have a really good season, it's kind of sad, but just makes you kind of want to join a conference. So if you do like Notre Dame, maybe you want to join a conference so you do have the ability to get that bye. The new conferences will be in the game. You can be your own conference commissioner, basically choosing what teams are in what conference if you do want to. Kind of mix things up here. You guys can see the Big Ten with Florida State. Obviously would be crazy, but you can mix things up if you do decide to do that. Talking schedules, guys, you can replace certain teams, so you can set your own schedule like a non-conference game. You can decide to swap them out if you do want to. Again, if it's a non-conference game, make your schedule tougher, weaker if you do decide to do that as well. To burn a shirt or to not burn a shirt. Again, to red shirt, you got to play, I do believe, more than 4 games. And so you can keep a player out there for the first 4 games or the last 4 games if you do want to do that. Again, if micromanaging red shirts is not your thing, anyone who is eligible for a red shirt at the end of the season will have it automatically applied. So again, if this is over your head, you don't want to worry about it, it's fine. It'll automatically happen. But for those of you guys like me, super in-depth into building your squad up, might want to look and kind of plan for this and redshirt somebody after 4 games if they're not seeing significant playing time. Records are meant to be broken. This is crazy. This is cool. So, again, you can break records as a coach. You can break records as an individual player, and they keep track of it. So this is something like, again, if you get a freshman phenom quarterback that isn't necessarily meant for the NFL, could break some records with them if you do decide to play for that, which I think is cool, the fact that they keep track of that. You can set records if you do want to, or even as a coach, you have a 30-year time span. Maybe you can break the record for national championships. Online, offline Dynasty can go for 30 seasons, and if you do want to do an online Dynasty, 32 users can participate. Again, I like this. I think online Dynasties have a lot of potential, even with you and your friends, even if it's only like 4 of you guys. Do think it could be a lot of fun. This Dynasty mode, the whole game is going to be over the top of a lot of our heads, and for me, I'm trying to give you guys the best breakdown I can. But again, even for me, there's so much to dive into today and just, that we've seen so far. So I do think the Dynasty mode is going to be unlike anything we've ever seen. Obviously, haven't seen this since NCAA Football 14. So should be revamped in a big time way. Let me know your thoughts on college football 25 and the Dynasty mode specifically. Drop a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, and as always, man, I love you guys. Have a blessed day.